colonial settler state based upon white supremacy and slavery, stealing the lands of indigenous nations, breaking every treaty made with them, and confining them to reservations, concentration camps. As the country became more powerful, confining the eagle sunk its claws into other nations, making war on Mexico and grabbing its northern territory, invading Cuba, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Philippines, and either annexing them outright or making them colonies or neo-colonies. And in the 20th century, it became the major imperialist power in the world, exploiting both the people within its boundaries and those in every other country, bullying them with military interventions and robbing them of their right to self-determination. As Huey P. Newton stated, we have two enemies to fight, racism and capitalism. Between the two, capitalism is primary. Racism is a byproduct of capitalism. The working people of the world of every ethnicity or nationality face a common enemy that is destroying life on Earth. Our enemy is a small ruling class of property owners controlling most of the world's wealth and resources. We must have our basic needs met to live a good and meaningful life: food, shelter, healthcare, education, freedom from oppression by the state, and peace with other nations. To obtain these essential things for life, we must have the power to see to it that the abundance that is available is shared equitably. Statement of Unity for the Second Rainbow Coalition. The legacy of the First Rainbow Coalition dates back to its founding on April 4th, 1969, by the original Black Panther Party, original Young Lords, and Young Patriots organization. A number of other organizations joined this coalition not too long afterwards, such as the American Indian Movement, Brown Berets, Rising Up Angry, the Red Guards, and others. Since the founding of the United States, the masses had developed a number of popular movements that came together to fight back against the capitalist imperialist system in various ways around particular demands. Nevertheless, none had established a movement quite like the First Rainbow Coalition. This historic movement was the first of its kind that established a model of class struggle like no other. Its charismatic leader, Chairman Fred Hampton of the Illinois chapter of the original Black Panther Party, stated that at the end of the day, we weren't engaged in a race struggle. He said that it's a class struggle, goddammit. By uniting with the various oppressed ethnicities and masses, they were able to bridge the gap between the various ethnic communities that white supremacy had long sought to keep divided. This class solidarity equipped them with the material basis and class consciousness to see their common class condition. Therefore, the necessity to form a united front against their common class oppressor, the capitalist imperialist ruling class. The ruling class viewed this as the greatest threat to their class rule and subsequently used the entire repressive forces of the state, police, courts, jails, prisons, and intelligence agencies, etc., in order to crush this emerging revolutionary socialist movement. We refounded the Rainbow Coalition on May 14, 2021, with the intent of upholding the legacy of the original Rainbow Coalition. We believe that this historic example is the model for the united front that will best serve our class liberation. By upholding the 10-point program of the original Black Panther Party, which was subsequently adopted and later expanded by the original Young Lords, Young Patriots organization, and all other original Rainbow Coalition members, we establish our programmatic unity. The 6 disciplinary rules that we uphold ties all organizations in our coalition to a common professional discipline. History has bestowed upon our generation a common class mission to fulfill. The representatives of the capitalist imperialist ruling class, represented by the Democratic Party and Republican Party, cannot liberate us. It is their class intention and interest to uphold our common class oppression. Therefore, it is only we, the oppressed masses of all ethnicities and nationalities, who must build the necessary class solidarity, class consciousness, organizational structures, and a united front that will ultimately liberate ourselves. This is what the Second Rainbow Coalition is committed to. This is the historic mission we intend to fulfill. Dare to struggle, dare to win, all power to the people, boots on the ground. Members of the coalition: New African Black Panther Party, White Panther Party, Green Party of New Jersey, Poor People's Army, La Mesa Nacional de Brown Berets, Piri, Nassau New Era Youngwoods, Guardian Rebellion, the six disciplinary rules. 1. Members will conduct themselves in a manner to bring credit to the coalition and will treat others with respect and politeness. 2. Members will be sober when on Rainbow Coalition business and will not engage in any criminal activity while a member. 3. No member will engage in violence except in the extremity of self-defense. 4. Members will not gossip nor be dismissive to the unity of the Second Rainbow Coalition. 5. Members will not act as informers nor work against the purpose of the Second Rainbow Coalition. 6. Nobody is authorized to speak for the Second Rainbow Coalition unless authorized to do so. Guardian Rebellion, American Indian Movement, and E. Woodland Chapter. Alright. Does anyone have any thing they want to share about this book? Has anyone read this book or anything they're excited to learn about or anything?
Hello y'all. Are we reading a new book?
Yes, this is. Can you guys see this on your screen?
Yes, I can see it. I thought we were still reading My People Are Rising. Are we done with that book?
Yes.
All right. Damn, I couldn't join the last two classes for it. Sorry. What's this new book about, though? If you don't mind me asking.
It's the autobiography of Dennis Banks and the rise of the American Indian Movement, Ojibwa Warrior.
Sorry, what?
It's the autobiography of Dennis Banks and the rise of the American Indian Movement. Ojibwa Warrior. Am I pronouncing that correct, everyone?
Ojibwa.
What?
Ojibwa.
Ojibwa.
Ojibwa. Yeah.
Ojibwa. That's looking cool. I'm definitely interested. I'm definitely excited in reading this book along with you guys. You know, since it'll give us a perspective and through the lens of the indigenous people of the U.S., which is very valuable. You know. So yeah, I'm definitely excited to read this. I myself, I want to read at some point. I want to read How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. That's a book that's on my radar that I really want to read, as well as The Counter-Revolution of 1776 and Settlers. Those are one of the three major books that I want to read.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Conrad. Joe?
Let me see. I'm trying to put my camera. Okay, there we go. No, I'm also excited about this new book read. And the whole, Dennis Banks being one of the founders of AIM, and that time period and what they were going through, and the struggles they were going through on Pine Ridge and different, just in different areas all across the nation, and where the AIM was formed to actually be protectors of the people, just like a lot of our organizations were formed for the protection of the people. So, like, really looking forward to this book read, and I'm glad to be here, and that's all.
Hell yeah.
Thank you for that.
A little bit unrelated, but the meeting on Friday with Aaron Dixon was awesome. I absolutely loved that. Loved hearing him and loved talking to him. I believe you were there, right, Joey?
If you're referring to me, my name is Joe, but how Joey works. Only my grandma called me Yoey. But anyway, but it's fine. Yeah, I was there, and I thought it was. I was just in thrills and stuff like that to hear that history from the elder comrade and stuff. And
exactly.
It went very well, and I was grateful to be on there. So thank you, brother.
Exactly. There are some really sorry.
Yeah, it was a great honor to be able to be there and speak and hear him talk about his past and about material conditions then and now, and hear other people in Revolutionary speak too. It was pretty good. It was nice.
Indeed, he said some really interesting things that I didn't know, like that thing in regards to I may be misremembering, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he said something in regards to how the first Black people who were born in Korea were it had something to do with I think with Elaine Brown or something like that. But he was talking about I believe he was talking about how one of the first Black people born in Korea were a part of the Black Panther Party or something like that. I may be misremembering.
Eldridge Cleaver and his wife had their baby in North Korea. Elaine Brown was visiting at the time, but yeah, it was Eldridge and his wife.
Ooh, nice. Also, it's wonderful to have you here, Sister Trisha.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, we're going to start the book now. So, to all the brave men and women of our movement who have passed on to the spirit world. Chapter 1, A Night to Remember. So, is my screen being erratic for everyone, or is it just them? Because then it says that it's blinking, but it's been all right on everyone else's phone.
It's perfectly fine for me.
Likewise,
it's fine on mine.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, but it's blinking erratically in Restream. It's going back and forth between being a stable visual versus blinking, so I'm not sure if that's my signal or your signal or what's going on. It's probably mine then if it's not doing it on your end.
We might want to record it in the Zoom. If you can record on your hit record
I got it.
Cat.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
All right. Chapter 1, A Night to Remember. On a dark night, you could hear the ghost crying, the ghost of 300 women and children killed by the soldiers so long ago. Dennis Fakes. Ojibwa. Ojibwa. May 8, 1973. Stand down at Wounded Knee. For 71 days, we had held out against an army of U.S. Marshals, FBI, a corrupt tribal chairman's private gang of thugs called the Goons, and a bunch of vigilantes, cowboys, and ranchers eager to bag themselves in Juan. Elements of the 82nd Airborne had been standing by in the vicinity just in case they should be needed. The feds had brought against as a swarm of armored cars, an occasional jet fighter to get a look at us, 50 caliber machine guns, M79 grenade launchers, high-powered searchlights, and Snoopy, their helicopter, to spy on us. We had killed our last steer. We were down to 1 meal a day, sometimes a meal every other day. We had only rice and beans left, and even that was running out. No flour, no sugar, no cigarettes. Gladys Bissonette had found a can of some fatty seasoning used to make popcorn and a box of powdered spuds. She mixed these together with some odds and ends and managed to make a meal of it. We still had some root tea for the warriors. That was it. Our lifetime had been the few miles between Porcupine and Wounded Knee, a sparsely wounded area that gave some cover to our runners, who brought supplies to us in their backpacks every night. But now the whole place was full of marshals with sniper scopes and infrared night vision scopes, non-barking attack dogs, and tripwire flares, which could turn night into day. On top of that, the feds had started huge brush fires to burn off the cover, making it easier for them to detect anyone going in or out. Supplies were down to a pitiful trickle. Starvation was staring us in the face. Almost every day now we had fierce firefights. The feds fired thousands of rounds at us. At night, their tracer bullets made a big show, crisscrossing the village from all directions. We were almost out of ammo. Our guys were down to about 10 bullets per man. A good many of our warriors had been wounded. Miraculously, only 2 had been killed. Frank Clearwater had been sleeping inside the Sacred Heart Church when a bullet crashed through the wall and hit him in the head. He never woke up. Buddy Lamont, a 31-year-old Vietnam veteran, was killed near the last stand bunker. He had been pinned down by a sniper, rose up to see where the shots were coming from, and was hit. His death was a terrible shock for us, particularly for Kamuk, my sweetheart, who was Buddy's niece. We tried to get to him, but the feds' fire was so fierce that it took us 2 hours to recover his body. He had been shot through the heart. His body was still warm when I touched it. The pain for us was very deep. Buddy's death was the end. Negotiations went on for a few days more, but we knew that it was over. Then had come. We had to surrender. Of the resistance leadership, besides me, only Carter Camp remained at the knee alongside our spiritual leaders, the medicine men, Leonard Crowdog, and Wallace Blackout. Kamuk had gone with her sister, Bernice, to transport Buddy out of the perimeter to Pine Ridge to prepare the funeral. Against all promises made to her, Kamuk had been arrested, handcuffed, and kept overnight in the tribal jail. But she came back to Wounded Knee. She walked on foot over 5 miles in the dead of night to join me during the last days. I had felt sad and lonely while she was gone. Now I was happy to have her back. It was the 5th of May. I had to tell her, the stand down will be on May 8th. Then the marshals will come in and probably the goons too. So you must leave before then. I don't want you to get roughed up and hurt by those bastards. I don't want you to be arrested again. Then Lo Bean told me, Dennis, the police are waiting for you. The FBI is waiting, too. The goons have sworn to kill you. You have to get out of here before the feds arrive. Kamuk added, an FBI agent wanted me to persuade you to give yourself up. He said the FBI would guarantee you safe passage to the nearest jail. We all laughed. I said, thank you. No, I don't want that kind of safe passage. Kamuk left in secret before me. We had plans how and where we would meet on the outside. Then a few of us got together. We sipped the last of the coffee. All agreed that I should not surrender. My friends were sure that some of the FBI and the goons would create an incident and shoot me down. Henry Wawaska of Potawatomi from Kansas was a close friend and head of my security. He said, a few warriors have to go with Dennis and make sure he gets through the perimeter. Glenn Foster, a Navajo and one of the earliest supporters of AIM said, "I'll go with Dennis. I'll protect him with my own life." And Henry asked, "Who else?" Glenn suggested Percy Capser. "He's a good man, a Canadian Indian from British Columbia. You can rely on him no matter what." We also picked Frank Blackhorse, a Lakota, always ready for a fight. I said, "That's it. That's all we need, and we are going to have a sweat to pray and purify ourselves." And we are going to have to sweat to pray and purify ourselves. So the night before the last, we went into the sweat lodge. Henry Wawastick, Percy Capser, Glenn Foster, Frank Blackhorse, and our two medicine men, Leonard Crow Dog and Wallace Blackout, and me. Crow Dog ran the sweat. He brought out his pipe and told us, "With this pipe, with this tobacco, and with this prayer, I'm going to make you invisible." That is what he told us. We all prayed that we would get out without being discovered, that we would escape using the darkness of the night as our shield. It was a powerful ceremony. The spirits came in, and we felt good and confident. When we saw little lights flickering in the darkness, Crow Dog warned us not to shoot at them because they were the souls of our dead ones. And we heard a ghost-like crying and singing coming from the Aurora, where the men of the 7th Cavalry had butchered our women and children back in 1890. The feds in their bunkers had heard the ghosts too, and it had shaken them up. Some of the marshals said later that an Indian on a horse had ridden through their camps and then suddenly dissolved into a cloud into nothingness. Okay. On the final night at Wounded Knee, we had one last meeting. I told my friends, tomorrow the feds will come in armed to the teeth with their APCs. They say they just want us to disarm, to give up our weapons. They are lying. They will handcuff the men and take them in buses to the nearest slammer. I don't like handcuffs and leg irons on me. I will not surrender. The feds have slapped $160,000 bail on me, and I could not possibly come up with that kind of money. I would have to go underground and lie low until it was time to surface. Carter Camp, Leonard Crow Dog, and Wallace Blackout decided to submit to arrest the next morning. They wanted the honor of being the last ones out of Wounded Knee, and they deserved it. "I'll give you my forwarding address," said Carter. "Pennington County Jail, Rapid City." Others came with me that night. I told the warriors to take their rifles and shotguns with them. You never know when you might have to defend yourselves. The goons are out there. We had to pick a safe way out of the mean. We were tightly surrounded. Everywhere the feds had roadblocks, and in every roadblock there was an APC, armored personnel carrier, and maybe a Jeep or two, also German Shepherd dogs. The whole perimeter swarmed with marshals and FBI. We finally decided to go out toward the north across the creek in the direction of Porcupine Butte.
Yeah.
Some warriors had scouted the area and thought the north was not as densely held by the feds as the south, west, and east. Then Lou Beam came up with a great idea. A group of women would cause a diversion at the south end of the perimeter to draw the feds' attention to the point while we headed north. Night fell. It was about 9 p.m. when we were ready. South near a roadblock, Louis Bean and about 20 other women started a tremendous racket. You could hear the feds' radios informing one another. Significant activity over there. Big floodlights, which they had used to scan all over Wounded Knee, were suddenly trained on that area. We grabbed our opportunity to sneak out. I will never forget the brave women who, throughout the 71 days of the siege, gave us their support. The 5 of us were traveling light. We each had a small backpack. My 4 companions also had their rifles, and that was it. We went in single file. Then Foster walked point, then came Henry, me, Casper, and Blackhorse. When the women thought we had safely gotten out, they quit making a racket, and the searchlights resumed sweeping the whole perimeter again, back and forth. We would run in a crouch about 100 yards and flatten out whenever the lights fanned over us. Then we would jump up and run another 100 yards, hit the ground again, run again. That is how we got through those searchlights, but they were not the only lights we had to deal with. All of a sudden, the feds started shooting up flares dangling from small parachutes. They lit up the whole valley like a 4th of July night. We walked north across the creek. When we got beyond it, we could hear the feds up on the hill in front of us. They were driving around in their Jeep and laughing. In the gully below were tripwires. The feds had set them up with cans so that if you tripped over the wire with your foot, you set off those cans. They made a great noise you could hear far off, telling the feds where some Indians were trying to come through. Tripping a wire would also cause a flare to go up. I remembered that Casper or Blackhurst got his leg entangled and set off a flare. He was stumbling around. Henry got really mad at him, really pissed off, and told him in no uncertain terms to watch himself. We did not want to be stopped and get into an armed confrontation. We were lucky. We got through that gully without incident and hustled along a fast clip. Now and then Lenny, our pointman, would scout ahead telling us, "Wait right here. Let me make sure that we don't run into some of those pigs." He would go over the next hill and make certain no feds were there. Then he would come back and tell us the coast was clear and we'd hustle on again. We would stay inside ravines as much as we could to avoid being discovered. Unfortunately, the ravines were not straight. They zigzagged all over the place. We would walk maybe 3 miles, but gained only 1. All this took time. It took us maybe 2 hours to cover a mile and a half. We finally got up to a high open area with lots of trees, but where we had to go, there was a stretch of about 150 yards without any cover at all. At the end of that was a tree line. There was no help for it. We had to cross that open space while occasional flares turned night into day. So I said, "Okay, one at a time, let's make a run for it." We did, and suddenly there was that Jeep. It had 2 feds in it and a German Shepherd. We were in the vehicle's shadow and it covered us. Everybody hit the ground and flattened out while the Jeep drove right by us. They didn't even see us. I knew Crow Dog's medicine was working. Man, my heart was pounding, I thought. Is this what it comes down to? We were out in the open. The tree line was still some 70 or 80 yards away. We just had to get into those trees. Well, we made it into the woods and felt a little safer. Then we heard an owl hooting. It was sitting in a tree trying to tell us something. In almost all Indian tribes, the owl is looked upon as a messenger, a bringer of bad news. If an owl visits you, it means that somebody is going to die. The owl kept hooting. I said, "It is warning us that there is danger ahead." We were walking toward Porcupine Butte, and the owl was flying ahead of us as if it wanted to show us the way. Then Lenny said, "Instead of walking cross country all over those hills for 10 or 11 miles, why don't we take a shortcut? I know the country around here. There's a road over there no more than a mile away." I said, "Why not? Instead of pumping over every hill." So we cut across, hit a fence, and climbed over it. Once in a while, we could see the lights of a car on the road. Winoonie was way behind us, and we felt good about it. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning and pitch dark, no moon. We were walking along the edge of the road. When we got to Porcupine Butte, we looked for Ellen Moore's camp, who was supposed to meet us there with a car, but she was not there. We saw cars coming towards us a mile or 2 ahead, and we hid in the brush by the side of the road. While planning our escape, we had passed word to those who were to meet us to blink their lights twice every half mile, but these cars did not blink their lights. We remained out of sight. We found out later that these were U.S. Marshals patrolling the whole area. We made good time from then on. We climbed over another fence, moving fast. About 5 o'clock in the morning, we got about a mile south of Porcupine Butte. We were on a hill, and down below was the village with lights coming from some of the windows. We came to a big open area. I think it was a landfill or trash dump, and there was a white car sitting there. The lights were not on, but we could hear the engine. More than that, we could hear loud laughter. It sounded like some skins hanging out with their girls. Lenny asked, "What shall we do?" I said, go over there and check them out. Maybe it's someone we could catch a ride with. So one of the guys sneaked up to the car and checked it out. He came loping back and said they are inside the car. They are talking and laughing like they're having a big party in there. I said, well, let's go and surprise them. We walked up to the car and we were the ones who were surprised. Henry opened the door. A light went on inside and there they were. 2 U.S. Marshals in their camouflage suits with an AR-15 sitting between them. They were as shocked as we were. They took off in a hail of gravel that hit us in the face. We knew that once they realized we were only a handful of fugitives, they would be back in a hurry. I told the boys, let's get out of here. The area west of the highway was densely wooded, so we took off toward it. We were walking along the trees when we heard cars pull up. They brought dogs out to do some sniffing. Our adrenaline was surging. We ran for maybe a half mile, but somehow they kept up with us. We could hear them with their bullhorn telling us, come on out of there, come on out, throw your weapons down. They had left their cars and got right on top of us, real close, and we heard them talking. How many were there? I saw 2 of them, bucking Indians. We could hear the dogs, but they did not pick up our scent. We threw our packs down and laid low there in the brush. The boys had their rifles cocked. I tried to keep calm. Finally, they stopped searching for us and left. We got up and scattered ourselves in the woods. That is when we got separated and lost touch. It was getting light. I was alone. I heard barking and saw 2 marshals coming with a couple of dogs. They had not picked up my scent yet. They were just combing the woods because they knew someone was out there. I ran over a hill and the dogs must have seen the movement. They started barking, howling like mad. They were coming toward me, getting closer and closer. I knew that over in the next hill was the school Our Lady of Lourdes. I ran over there, through the campus, to the road where I saw 3 mobile homes. I knocked on one door and an Indian lady opened it. She cried, Dennis Banks, come inside quick. Where did you come from? I told her and she said, wow. She glanced out the window and saw the marshals coming with the dogs. The kind, stout-hearted lady pushed me in some dark cubbyhole saying, stay there, don't worry. I won't let these pigs come to my home. The marshal let their dogs loose, hoping they would pick up my scent somehow. They didn't know it was me they were chasing. They were just after some nondescriptive, suspicious Indians. Otherwise, there would have been more feds. Porcupine, like most reservation towns, was full of skinny, mangry, hungry, and mean reservation dogs. They came running, tearing into those big, fat, overfed police dogs. It was one of the most vicious dog fights I had ever seen. In a moment, there was just a snarling tangle of legs, tails, and teeth. The marshals were trying to save their dogs from being torn to pieces. They had lost all interest in me. The nice lady fried up some eggs for me and gave me a big mug of black medicine. She let me use her phone. I dialed a number in Rapid City where I thought the Mook might be, and I guessed right. A while later, Ellen Moo's camp showed up with Mook. The marshals were gone and I could relax a bit. Ellen said they had been at Porcupine Butte hours before but had been chased off by the feds. They asked what had become of the boys, but I didn't know. We hung around there for another 2 or 3 hours, checking the area up against kind of soul. We found out later that they had made it safely to the house of John Ataxton, a friend of Casper's. John hid them and a couple days later got them safely to Crow Dog's place at Rosebud. Kamuk and I finally made it to Rapid City, where we stayed for a very short time with friends. I think that the power of the pipe and the sweat lodge, the songs and the prayers protected us, and as Crow Dog had said, made us, in a way, invincible. The manhunt continued, and I was the prey. The feds were determined to get me, not only for wounding me, but also for other earlier civil rights complications. We could not go on hiding with friends in Rapid City. It was too close to Pine Ridge, too close to areas swarming with agents and marshals. We got hold of a car and headed south to Utah, but then we decided to head north to Canada. We were joined by Ron Petit and his wife Cheryl, an AIM couple in a similar situation. They brought my 9-year-old son DJ, a child from a previous marriage, along. Kamuk, Cheryl, and DJ drove across the Canadian border without incident. Ron and I went across on foot through the woods, and they picked us up at the other side. By stages and amid hair-raising adventures, we got all the way to the Northwest Territory, to Yellowknife on the northern edge of Great Slave Lake. From there, we took a small float plane some friends had chartered for us to a place called Ray Lakes. The place was named after a chief called Ray, who had settled there with a small band of Northern Bene. The chief welcomed us and promised to help us in any way he could. We had arrived at the end of the world at the northernmost edge of the continent. We could only get there by plane. There were no roads, no FBI agent, no marshal, no Mountie could ever come there. By then it was autumn and getting cold. We had brought enough groceries to last us 3 months, boxes and boxes of stuff. We took a lot of salt to cure dried meat because we intended to hunt with the rifles we had brought. Ray's people showed us how to fish with a net, and we also did well with duck hunting. We decided to build ourselves a log cabin. We had brought saws and axes, everything we needed. We finished the cabin and moved in, living as people had done 100 years earlier. We were entirely cut off from the rest of the world. I liked it, just the 5 of us alone in nature with the nightly concert of wolf songs. I had plenty of time to reflect upon my life, to think back on how it all started, how I'd gotten from a traditional childhood on an Ojibwa Warrior in Minnesota, to the big city, to the founding of AIM, to Wounded Knee. How had it all begun? All right, so that's what we're reading for today. Would anyone like to share their thoughts or comments or anything? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was doing something, but it's honestly just, it's honestly just, I'm reading that. It's kind of wild how on multiple occasions they managed to escape the fascist pigs and how they managed to get away. It's honestly kind of, wild that they managed to, go undetected until they reach Canada. It's just kind of wild. That's all I really have to say in regards to that. But it's honestly just really beautiful how that revolutionary spirit allowed them to persist and move on. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, I'm excited to read more. I'm really captured by the first chapter, honestly.
Indeed.
And in current revolutionary spaces, there's not a lot of talk about spirituality or practices that and practices that indigenous people have used for hundreds of years.
Indeed.
I'm excited to read more about that from
100%.
From being the founder of AIM, and so that's really cool because I like to hear all perspectives. So.
Indeed, it's unfortunate that so much about indigenous culture and spirituality and traditions are just not talked about enough, which is a shame, especially considering how when it comes to revolution and when it comes to radicalizing the masses, cultural revolution, when cultural revolution does happen, I'd imagine that, said indigenous spirituality and religion and mythology would be used to radicalize, and agitate indigenous people in order to become more radical, I'd imagine. So yeah, it's honestly just really awesome hearing this.
Yeah, most definitely. Does anyone have any other comments or Jeff?
Yes, I have a sister, comrade Ojibwe sister, that is messaged me because I sent her the YouTube video, and she actually asked to like come on here, but I was talking to Brother Kwame, and like, yeah, I definitely have to check in who we bring in. But anyway, she's giving a summary of the first chapter and kind of goes into like the second chapter. But if you guys don't mind, I can take the time to read her summary or her summation on this first chapter. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome.
Okay, well then here it is. It's here's my summation of the first chapter. This chapter gives important background in order to understand why AIM came about. So in the first chapter, Dennis Banks is introduced by the authors. They start off by describing a powwow where Banks is introduced and respected as a respected member of the community. This beginning shows us that he is an important to the Ojibwe people. Then we are given background on the American Indian experience, including the colonization of North America by Europeans and the forced relocation of American Indian people from their homelands. They also discuss the Indian boarding school system. I think that's where she's jumping forward, but I'll just go ahead and read what she's saying. To give a deeper understanding of Banks and how he was forced to assimilate. Children forced into the white American culture and resulted in the loss of language and cultural identity. For many American Indians, for many, they carried shame for being Indian. And an example within my family is my great-grandpa, who, when people would refer him as Indian, he would correct them and say he was a rancher. And then the author stares details of Banks' experience in boarding schools where he was punished for speaking Anishinaabe and learned to feel shame about his American Indian identity. The experience, along with the broader history of colonization and oppression, fueled Banks' desire to fight for the American Indian rights and sovereignty. Leonard and I talked about this in detail. He also shared some things he and Banks talked about, which I'll share with you sometime. The authors also introduce us to the founding principles of AIM, which include the promotion of American Indian rights, self-determination, and sovereignty. They describe how AIM organized protests and demonstrations throughout the 1960s and 70s, including the occupation of Alcatraz Island and the Wounded Knee incident. Overall, the first chapter of Ojibwa Warrior provides an important historical context of understanding the American Indian experience and the founding of AIM. It highlights the ongoing struggle faced by American Indian communities and the need for organization like AIM to fight for the rights and sovereignty. And it's extremely important foundation to understand what fueled AIM. And that's her take on it. She keeps on writing, and I'll leave it there. But one of the people in this first chapter that was mentioned, Lenny Foster, on February 6th, I had a rally in Sacramento, California at the state capitol building to bring awareness for our comrade brother Leonard Peltier. And Lenny Foster, of course, he's getting up there in age, and due to health issues, he wasn't able to make it. But through a live recording, he gave the opening native prayer, or indigenous prayer, to the event. So that was pretty powerful. But I just wanted to share that. And does anybody else have anything to say on that, or so forth?
Thank you for sharing that. It was it was very
It was awesome.
yeah, it was knowledgeable to hear that and with their thoughts on all of that, and close person to Leonard, like writing that, and your comrade. That's awesome. I'd love to hear more about or read more of it. Maybe we can connect later.
Yeah, and then maybe in the near future, or specifically with this book reading, and I was talking to the comrade brother Kwame last night, how can we bring some indigenous peoples into this, or indigenous brothers and sisters into this, in this book reading? And so we'll have to see how that works out. But I know she sent a request, and let's see, we all can review that and see how that goes and takes forward, because it's easier for her to talk because she's such a good speaker and she's a wealth of knowledge. And her name is Kimberly Laframbrose. Like I said, she's an Ojibwe member, and that's all.
Thank you. Kwame, Zen, you guys got anything you want to say?
Yeah, I think it just highlights like the indigenous people's resolve to stand together, make a statement. That Wounded Knee really put AIM like strongly on the map. I know we haven't got to this part yet, but me and my wife was watching a Ojibwa Warrior on TV the other day. It was basically this book broken down in like a docu-series and stuff. But and then this sector of history, like the indigenous population was not really being recognized until AIM started making itself a presence out there, doing confrontations, standing up to the U.S. government, even going into the Bureau of Indian Affairs and stuff, taking that over and stuff. So this Wounded Knee incident really gave, just like the Black Panther Party gave Black people pride, it gave a lot of indigenous people pride in their culture and their history and their community and stuff, and brought a lot of the people together. You know what I mean? And I think the more we read on in this book, this is going to highlight how important this time in history was to building that solidarity within the indigenous community itself. You know what I mean? Because it was very divided for a long time. So I think that's one of the highlights I see of this chapter is how Wounded Knee was a symbol of resistance and a symbol of pride of the indigenous people.
Most definitely, I definitely resonate with what you just said, because like the strength and the non-surrender that they, that they will not surrender, but being divided and then coming together and still not surrendering, it's inspiring. Joe?
Yes. And this is a 71-day shootout with the FBI. So there's not just a couple hours of a shootout. This is a whole 71-day shootout, and I'm proud to say, as a Brown Beret, we had 3 of our Brown Beret comrades there in 73, and Wounded Knee offering support. So and
That's awesome.
Yeah, so and not to mention all the other ones, the brother that came from Canada, they came from all over to support. And so that showed a strength in unity and a strength of defiance. And 71 days ain't no joke. I've been in occasions where like a 10-minute shootout is a long time. Imagine 71 days. Wow, that speaks a lot of power for AIM. And they were asked by those that lived in the Pine Ridge Reservation to please come help with this goon squad that was just, really, really mistreating our indigenous comrade brothers and sisters at that time there. And there was no resolution for that other than to stand up in a militant force, like gun to gun, rifle to rifle. That's all.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely a good thing to, outline. And Gabby?
Sorry about that. I was doing something, but no, yeah. What Joe? Sorry, not Joey. Joe. Sorry, I see the E and I automatically think it's Joey when it's just Joe. But with what Comrade Joe was saying, you know, what said, the fact that it lasted 71 days of just constant opposition and back and forth between AIM and the U.S. state, it just shows the resolve and the revolutionary spirit of um, of indigenous people. You know, not just in the U.S. alone, but throughout all of the Americas, throughout all of North and South America. So I think it's beautiful, and I think, you know, this is going to give us a very needed perspective on the struggle that indigenous nations and indigenous communities have to face and combat when it comes to fighting against U.S. imperialism and white supremacy. So yeah.
Joe?
Yes, and also I forgot to mention, I'm in Denver, Colorado right now, and I'll be in El Paso, Texas tomorrow. But in Denver, the community with Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez and the Crusade for Justice here in the Denver region collected mass amount of foods that they sent over there to Wounded Knee in '73, and they ended up facing repercussions here in Denver for standing up for Wounded Knee, where the police started shooting us Chicano community members, and also even bombed their office here in Denver, Colorado at that time before supporting that. So it was like a worldwide, or not worldwide, but what happened in Wounded Knee, and the supporters of Wounded Knee also faced repercussions to that in different areas. That's all.
Yeah, I'm excited to learn more about how all of this went down and his perspective, and the retaliation nationwide from the supporters of Wounded Knee and AIM. You know, it definitely makes you think about the enemies and the U.S. Government. Definitely.
Yes, and as a strong supporter for getting clemency or freedom for the comrade brother Leonard Peltier, who's still been incarcerated 48 years from this time period. They didn't actually get him until 75, but he's still a political prisoner from this time period, and that's why I'm really a strong advocate of the freedom of Leonard Peltier. And we can't give up, because any one of us as revolutionists, when we put ourselves in the front lines and become martyrs, this can happen to any one of us, and we definitely don't want our stance to be forgotten, our revolutionary stance to be forgotten. So just wanted to add that also. That's all.
Thank you for adding that. He needs to be free. I agree. So it's getting close to an hour, and
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I was gonna add that another thing that I would like to learn from as well, not just Wounded Knee, but I also want to learn the history and backstory about what happened during Little Bighorn. That's another that's another point of indigenous resistance that I would also like to analyze through a Marxist and critical lens as well. That's all I want to say.
Good point, because that was a strong show of force where multiple tribes got together. I don't want to mention all their names because I don't want to be incorrect, but multiple tribes gathered together and they fought that resistance. And Custer thought he had enough support, but they just strategically screwed up. And of course, they call it the massacre, but no, they were going to massacre us Native Indigenous peoples, and they're the ones that got caught with the short end of the stick. And so that is a good thing to bring up, because even in today's times, when we collectively get together as the masses, we will defeat the colonizers, and that's all.
Beautifully said, Comrade Joe. Beautifully said.
More power to the people.
All power to
All
the people.
power. All power. Panther power.
Okay, well, is there anything else anyone would like to add? And thank you guys for all joining me today for my first facilitation of the book reading groups. And I'm humbled and great to start doing Sundays. And I'm glad to be here and learn with you all and read books.
All power to the people.
All power.
All right, well, revolutionary love, everyone. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
Stay strong.
Oh, yeah. Have a
All
great
power.
rest of y'all Sundays, y'all. Have a wonderful day.
Absolutely. All power to the people, comrade.
All power.
All power and Panther love.
Uh-huh.
Record.